I don't know. Thoughts, questions? What reactions
Yeah,
do you have to that?
I'm I can tell I'm getting older because I hear what you're saying, right? And I'm almost smiling, kind of laughing because I'm like, I wanted to ask you, and this is one thing it kind of gets to me now as I'm older, and you can give advice to people just like you literally just gave them the steps, tell them what to do, the mindset, everything. How many people do you think listening or in general is actually going to try to do what you just said? Because you just laid down the blueprint, but how many people you think actually is going to apply that? That's the sad part.
Yeah. That cycle where good times create soft people, soft create people create hard times create good people. One of the difficulties right now I think, and I don't like to go to a big societal comment, but here's what drives me. I think your worldview, dare I go here a little bit, your worldview, I believe the Bible to a T. Like that's who I am. My faith is in Jesus. I believe, Darian, that you were made in the image of God to do purposeful work that when you get into heaven, there's some sort of reward for. The ultimate commandment, it says to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. To seek justice, walk mercifully. And that Jesus said that the way you treat the least of these, the way you treat the people you have nothing to gain for, that's how I'm going to count. I just read in Luke this story where a rich man had a bunch of stuff and he had a big old estate, and there's a guy sitting at the edge of his estate who was dead, dying, and crippled. They both die and go to heaven. The rich guy would always ignore this person who had needs. And they get into heaven, and basically it's because one of them was faithful to God, he goes to heaven, the poor guy, and the rich guy who had everything and ignored everybody that came by him. So I believe that all of it, that guy is in hell, and there's a chasm between him, and he's like, please give me some water, please help my thirst, because what hell is separation from an eternal God. So it's not out of fear. I fear God, though. I do fear God. I do believe there is a creator. I believe if you look at creation, you can see that there was a creator. Just like if I found Harry Potter on an island, I'd be like, there's an author. Someone wrote that. And I look at our DNA and our systems and I'm like, that's an operating system that works perfectly. And life does not come from non-life. We've never seen that. This information, so not that everybody has to agree with me, and that might be a little whack job for some people, but I believe that when people at least consider the fact that there is a purpose to your life, and I think it really does count. And I think if you're really honest about it, Jordan Peterson, love or hate Jordan Peterson, if you listen to what Jordan Peterson's teaching right now, he's kind of teaching that, like, even if you think Christianity is a joke, and even if the church is filled with hypocrites, when you read and you think about, if you read the Proverbs, it's like there's so much wisdom there. And when you start to tap into this, at minimum, don't we all want to be known as generous, loving people? Maybe not. Maybe we just want to be envied. But eventually that runs out. Eventually we'll be old and ugly. Eventually it's not going to work for you. So I guess my point is, at minimum, Jordan Peterson seems to point out that there's at least utility in trying to live out what the Bible specifically answers. And I'll end with this. So I believe there's a purpose. I believe that people listening to this, I genuinely mean it. I think you were made for greatness. I believe that Adam and Eve were made perfect and sin broke and we live in a cursed world. I think there's stuff and purpose and goodness within you that if you tap into it, nothing can stop you. In fact, God confused the languages in Genesis supposedly because there's nothing we couldn't accomplish. I think that's in us. I think that's there. And so if you listen, so that might be crazy. That might sound crazy. That's fine with me. But at minimum, why not? Like, at minimum, what if, and I know this is Occam's razor, like, so if there is a God and you will stand before him accountable, why not try to do good? Like, why not? At minimum, I can tell you that rich people kill themselves for some reason. Rich people are depressed. They're addicted. They continuously seek more. And there's a reason why Jesus said it's going to be harder for a rich man to go to heaven, because our heart gets consumed with stuff. So, anyways, I don't want to preach too much there. I'm sorry I go off too much.
Yeah.
But if you're
No, you're
listening to
good.
this, that's what drives me. And I believe that God said that every word we say will be accountable, but He's a good, just God. He wants us to come back to Him. He's a heavenly Father. I think that there are people around you that you can bless by paying attention to them. I think that when you are a great steward of the opportunity of the life you have, I just think if you were to rewind 2,500 years ago, where just getting water is impossible, like things are difficult, and you found out all the margin we have in our life, and you thought, how do I spend it? Do I spend it maximizing it? Do I spend it at minimum trying to make myself into the best person who executes well and relates to people well? Back to that book, right? What's the wake you're leaving in life? So I'll conclude with this. The margin we have in our life because of how much there is in society, because we don't have to kill our food, we don't have to farm. Like just 150 years ago, none of us would have time to be listening to this podcast. None of us we'd be out making food, right? That's what we would be doing. And I think because, when Jesus said it's going to be really hard for rich people to go to heaven, like a donkey going through the eye of a needle, or a camel, I think what he was alluding to is that there is a time coming eventually, which our hockey stick of like goodness in this world has just popped really high, where it's going to be really hard to want to steward well the opportunity because all of your needs are taken care of. Like, so if you're hearing this, it is the easy thing to sit and just not do it. And that's okay. So I got another thing. I don't think you have to do this. I think that if you look at what's the goal in life, I think it's to have love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Those things in your life create good things. It's funny, I have a friend of mine, and I get around them every once in a while. There's a gal, she worked at a very simple retail store in the Mall of America for a very long time. I have way more money than her. I have a bigger house than her. I have more than her. But she's so at peace. My wife's great grandma just died. 95 years old. Her name is Ruth. She was the most full of peace, joy, love, kindness, faith. She is faithful. Like I got to say a word to her whole family. She's kept her family together. She related well, and she was just a good steward of whatever came her way. And that's what God tells us, is that we're supposed to be faithful with whatever gets put in our hands. And God says that if you're not faithful with little things, how are you going to be faithful with big things? If you're not faithful with the things I give you that are yours, why would I give you other people's stuff? So to me, that can all be true, but I think that everybody has a sinful voice inside of them. I have a sinful voice. I see people, I judge them so quickly. Like I am so critical. I'm so cynical. I have a sinful, dark-rooted side of me that I'm at war with constantly. And I think if you're honest with it, all of us have that voice. Now, I think this world right now is trying to convince people that that voice is worth listening to, and I don't think it is. I think that the voice to listen to is the one that says, love me, love others. Anyways, that's my big rant. I don't know if you
I
knew what
understand.
you'd sign
Yeah.
up for there.
Hey, look, like, hey, I don't have to go to church this Sunday now. No, but
Yeah.
the biggest thing for me from that too, and what I learned is a lot of people hear entrepreneurship is starting a business, and they what happens is you see these flashy individuals out here, right, with these cars and clothes and everything, and people join entrepreneurship one for the wrong reason, and then two, people join it for the money, right? And for me, the reason why I joined entrepreneurship to be an entrepreneur was not for money, right? Like I said, I value time. It's not about money. It's more about time for me. So I say that to say is you don't need to be a millionaire, right? If you don't want to be, right? You don't
Yeah.
need to, work weekends if you don't want to, right? Literally just find that part of your life, the amount of money, your goals, whatever makes you happy, that's what you need to go for. It just happens that entrepreneurship for a lot of people helps accelerate that process. But I know a lot
Yeah.
of people who, get into businesses and start and it's just money hungry. And that's for them. That's perfect. But for me, it's about time and being able to give as much value as possible. So that's on the
Now,
side. But yeah, I get 100% what you were saying.
so let me add on that. All that being said, I was an All-American football player. I'm trying to crush my
Mhm.
competitors. I'm trying to
Yeah.
drive as
Hey,
much net profit as I can. So
there we go.
all that being said, let's be clear. You need to add so much value and get lots of sales and execute in a way that builds credibility over time. If you want to start entrepreneurship,
Exactly.
here's what you don't get to sit back and look at all of this stuff. Like I drive a 2008 Altima cloth interior, let's be clear. But I have a 4,200 square foot house that I got to buy. I have 4 kids that I feed. I clothe and I help 7 families live by feeding them. I am a very driven. I obsess about. In fact, probably my biggest problem is that if I let it, this business would consume me. It already
Mhm.
tries to nonstop. It would destroy my marriage if I let it. It would destroy my ability to be a good father if I let it. Like my mind, I cannot even kind of think about work after about 6:30, 7 o'clock. If I turn it on, I'm not sleeping that night. I'm up all night and I could sit and write blog posts, make videos. I'm sick. Like I'm
Yep.
sick. I go to church. It's relationship with God, relationship with my wife, relationship with my kids, maybe family and like other family, but it is my job, like to the detriment of I got to get back in shape type of deal.